Thank you for tuning into my channel today. This is Randy May. Glad to have you with me. If you would, hit the subscribe button, give it the thumbs up, and if you wouldn't mind hitting the little bell, if you want to make a comment, I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Today we're going to be talking about churches need a security plan. Churches need a security plan. I realize most mega churches, large churches, they have security teams. Many of them are policemen or off duty, and they employ them to keep security at their church, and I understand that. But unfortunately, bad people and people that are mentally ill are not just going into the mega churches, they're going into small churches. There's a lot of churches in America, believe it or not, that are not like the ones on TV where there's 15, 25,000 people sitting in the service. There's a lot of churches out there that run less than 100 people. Some run less than 50. Some are in rural areas. Some are in small towns. Some could be in cities. But there's a lot of small churches out there, and I think because they're small, I don't ever need a plan, but you do. A church needs to have a security plan. All churches should be concerned with the security of the people that attend their church, the people that are members of their church. You need to be concerned with them no matter what size your congregation is. We're living in the last days, and the churches need to have a plan. I want to just touch on some things that's happened recently in churches across America. We had one where a guy went in and started shooting people in the church not long ago, and he didn't know the people, but he went in there and started doing it. And it was a horrible thing to happen, but it did happen. People have interrupted church services by standing up and speaking out loud while the pastor's preaching, while people are listening to the Word of God, and they get up and they start talking. We even had a mega church, I'm not going to name any names, but we had a mega church where women stood up and took their clothes off while the pastor was preaching, and they had to be corralled by the security and ushered out, you know. And I saw another church service where the pastor was preaching, and I believe he had 6,000 people there, and some guy wearing a black, all black, wearing a black backpack, run up to the platform and charged him, and they grabbed him, and he started hollering and screaming and talking irrational and disrupted the whole service. So it's good to have a plan. We've had people rush the platform. Just long ago, in Nebraska, in a small town, they had a Catholic priest that was stabbed to death in his church and was killed by a man who took a knife and killed him. A pastor and his wife just this last Sunday was taken hostage by a knife-wielding man who took them hostage and for whatever reason, and so that put them in a precarious situation. We've had a lot of church vandalism. The church I belong to, we had our sign busted. And we have that's a small church. The pastor does a wonderful job. And it cost a lot of money to replace the sign. We replaced it, they busted it again. And they replaced it one more time, they busted it again. They kept vandalizing. So I told the pastor, I said, I'm going to send you to a good place where he can make you a sign that looks identical to what you have, but it's no longer breakable. It's a metal sign. You put it in there, and we're done with it. And they put it in over a year ago, and nothing has happened, and that stopped. But we've still had other problems besides that. So you don't have to be a mega church. You don't have to have thousands of people to have problems in your church. You need to have some kind of plan. Churches should have a security plan, protect all their members, because we're living in perilous times. What is perilous times? It typically means it's dangerous, it's difficult, it's hard to bear, it's even fierce or savage. We've had a lot of people do bad things. There was a security guard at a church just a few weeks ago. The guy was a knife-wielding guy and slashed his throat. I mean, he had a big cut all the way up. Thank God he didn't die. If he'd have been just a little further in, he would have hit his artery. He'd have died before they got there. And so people are very violent, and it don't have to necessarily be guns. The pastor's wife that was taken hostage was by a knife-wielding guy. The guy that slit that guy's throat was by a guy with a knife. The other guy that did damage to the church, he had a knife. Some people just get up, like I said, and disrupt the service. What do you do if something like that happens? I was pastoring a church when a guy came in while we had a speaker going on. I wasn't preaching. And this guy walks in the church wearing a bathrobe, cowboy boots, a cowboy hat, a lit cigar in his mouth, walks right down to the second pew and sits right down on the aisle there. And then he starts laughing. He leans over and talks to a woman. She jumps up and runs out. Immediately, I went down there with 4 men. And I told them, you two go take these 2 aisles and come right up to him this way. You two come right down here. I'll get behind him. I motioned the people sitting behind him, move out. And they did. And I went right down there. And they kept the service going. I leaned over and I said, sir, you're causing a confusion. You're going to have to step outside. We need to talk to you. And he took his cigar and looked at me and put it in his hand and burned his hand, put it there and laughed and flicked it. And when he did, I leaned over real quiet and I said, sir, here's the situation. You're either going to stand up and go out with us or we're going to take you out. So you got 3 seconds here to make up your mind. You're either walking out or we're going to carry you out. And so he got up, we walked him out. We had a guy at the door. As soon as we walked him through the sanctuary door, he closed that door. And then he stood in front of it. Then we had a couple of vestibules. We took him right out by the front door, opened the door, walked him out on the sidewalk, and stood there and wouldn't let him back in the place, the 5 of us. And we'd already called the police. And we ushered him out so the church service could continue to go on because he was causing a confusion. You say, that could never happen in my church. We didn't think it could ever happen to ours either. But it did. And come to find out, he was supposed to be in a mental place, and he got away. And he came into our facility, and he lived a couple of blocks from the church, and he went on home before he came to our church, we found out, and got dressed that way and came on down. And so they ushered him back to the mental place where he was admitted, and he needed mental help. Nobody in their right mind would go into a church like that. I won't go any further, but you can imagine the bathrobe was not the biggest problem. So we need to realize that peerless times are here, times that are difficult, hard to bear, and fierce. And we need to have a plan. What happens if someone stands up and starts disturbing the church and talking loud? What are you going to do? That's not the time to formulate a plan. You need to have a plan in advance. We had a plan, if anything ever happened, somebody disrupted the service, that we would have 4 or 5 guys that would get up immediately and go over there and try to take care of it. And they knew who they were and they knew what we were going to do. All I did was walk back there and say, okay, you 2 guys will go this way, you 2 will go that way. I'll talk to him. We'll get him out of here, you know. So then we went down and we blocked him off and we told him, you know, you gotta go outside. We were real nice about it. We gave him 2 opportunities to get up. When we reached over and helped him stand up, then he decided, well, it's time to walk out. So he did. Did he make a disturbance on the way out? Yeah, he hollered a little bit and said some obscenities, but we got him out the door quickly, closed the door, and I already told you what happened to him. He had mental issues. Most people that interrupt church services have some kind of mental issue. That happens a lot. And so in our society, our government's failing in helping people with mental issues. That's why you see all these people living on the streets and in tents. A lot of them need help, but they don't get it. And so you can expect that they may show up at your church. Churches need to have a plan. And we need to realize these are dangerous, difficult, savage times that we're living in. 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 5, I'll read in just a minute. But we need to be ready for these times. Here, I'll read it right here. 2 Timothy 3 and 1. But realize this, that in last days, difficult times will come. Well, they're here, folks. We are living in difficult times, and we're living with people that have mental illness. We're living with people that have hard feelings. We have people that want to get even, and so where do they go? You know, when people want to cause problems, they go to soft targets. What is a soft target? Well, there was a guy a couple of years ago went into a theater and shot a bunch of people. I think it was Colorado, but I'm not sure. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Colorado. But he looked at online and he passed 3 or 4 theaters that were closer to his house. But the reason he didn't go there was they didn't have a no-gun zone. This theater had a no-gun zone. So he knew if he went in and started shooting, there'd be nobody there to stop him. And it would take quite a while for the police to get there and take care of it. So that's where he went. Why did they keep going to schools and shooting kids? Because there's a no-gun zone. Soft target. I'm going to be the only one with a gun. That's why they're putting armed guards in the schools. They need to do a better job. They also need to put doors. They have all sorts of gadgets now you can put on the doors. They ought to have one hanging on every classroom door. You can't get through the door. I don't care if you're how strong you are, how big you are. You're not going to get through the door. We need to become hard targets, not soft targets. Now they're finding out churches are soft targets, especially churches that are getting small, that have less than 100 people. You're having more people go in and disrupt services because they know it's a soft target. Nobody there is going to do anything. They don't have a security team, and they can disrupt. Churches need to be ready. We need to look at church security like we're going out in a snowstorm. When you're going out in a snowstorm and you have to go somewhere, you put a shovel in your trunk, you put rock salt in your trunk, you put an extra blanket, sometimes you put food and water in there so that if you get stuck or get caught in something, you're prepared. Because it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. It's better to have a security plan and never have to use it than to not have one at all and you need it. All right, so you need to devise a security plan. And I knew a guy that's got a church. He kind of talked to me about it, not asking me. I'm not an ex-policeman. I'm not offering a security plan to no one. I'm just telling you, you ought to develop one. There's plenty of guys on YouTube that give free training to churches for security plans. They're the experts. I'm just trying to reach the people that I talk to and I meet with that you need a security plan too, because it's better to have one and not need it than to need one and not have it. And so I told him, I said, you need to come up with a plan, like either if somebody comes in and pulls a weapon out, whether it be a knife or a gun, does everybody go to this exit? If everybody goes to the same exit, even if you have a small church, if you get 40 or 50 people headed to one door, there's a crowd of people stuck trying to get out. There needs to be a better plan that everybody don't run to one door. Also, if somebody come in and they pull out a gun or whatever, are the people supposed to lay down on the floor while some other people that are dealt to deal with them confronts them and tries to stop them? Or do they try to go out the doors? Things like that. You need to have a plan and have it put together, because it's like I said, it's better to have a plan and never need it than to have a problem and not be ready for it. All right? So all I'm going to say is security is needed in our churches, and we need to give it some thought and talk to the church board or the elders or however your church is run, however it's organized. You need to talk to them and sit down and say, look, I know that we only have 40 or 50 people on Sunday, but what if somebody come in and tried to disrupt the service? What if someone came in and took some of their clothes off? What would we do? What if somebody comes in and they just start talking out loud and causing a confusion? How are we going to handle this? And so you need to devise a plan, even if you have a small church, because our society's getting to the point where we're having more and more problems, and we need to be ready to protect our parishioners, protect the people in our church, and let them know that we're going to have some kind of plan put together. And yeah, if you're a small church, you can't afford to hire a security team. You can't afford to hire off-duty policemen. I understand that. But you need to devise a plan and come up with something to protect your people and give them peace of mind so they can enjoy the worship service. They can enjoy the preaching of the pastor. They can enjoy, if you have Sunday school, they can enjoy Sunday school and realize that I don't have to think about this because the church has a plan, and if something goes wrong, I know what I'm supposed to do, and they're going to take care of it. They have a plan. That's all I'm saying. God loves you. I love you. I wish we didn't even have to discuss anything like this. I never thought that I would live to see something like this go on, where people go into churches and cause problems, but it does happen. And we need to, like I said, I'll end by saying it again, better to have a plan and not never need it than to need a plan and don't have one. So please come up with a plan, talk to your elders, talk to your men or whoever's in charge on the board, and try to come up with something you think that's fair and equitable for your church. God bless you. I love you. Please share our channel with other people. And as I always say, thank you for your time. This time till next time, have a wonderful day, and God bless you, and God bless your church.